The year is 2002. I'm in a cafe after school hanging out with a group of friends. One of them opens his school bag and takes out an issue of PlayStation magazine. Across the cover, I see a familiar white-haired man with 3 big words underneath him: Devil May Cry, followed by the number 2. My friend says to me, "Hey, did you see this?" knowing that I was a huge fan of the first Devil May Cry game. Handing me the magazine, I impatiently flip through it until I reach the article I was looking for. What I saw blew my mind. Awesome in-game screenshots of my man Dante running on walls, shooting 2 demons at the same time, and traversing a massive city environment. All of this looked really great and had me very excited. I went home that day feeling awesome, knowing that there was another Devil May Cry game in the works. About a year later, I remember seeing a commercial for the game on TV. It showed off Dante's new devil trigger form and a giant demon the size of a building. It looked like DMC2 was going to be the best video game ever made. I got my copy for my birthday, and I got to playing DMC2 immediately. I was surprised to see how the game came with 2 discs, giving you the option to play through a second campaign as a brand new character, the mysterious and sexy Lucia. What a pleasant surprise, I thought to myself. This game must be like a grand demon-slaying epic spanning 2 characters' stories. I was so pumped up. I finished this game in about 2 days, and even at this younger age, not really understanding what made a video game good or bad, I felt empty after playing DMC2. I had my fun, of course, but this title just didn't have the same intensity or thrills that its predecessor originally brought to the table. I didn't end up playing the game again for a second time right away like I did with all of my other games. Instead, I went back to DMC2 and, of course, the Final Fantasies and Resident Evils of the time. As the years went on, I would speak to other people about DMC2, and I quickly found out that the general consensus on this game was that people thought it was really bad. After replaying it a few years after my initial playthrough, I obviously saw the game in this way too. It's really disappointing, and it's just something that's always interested me about this series of games. Today I'll be taking a look at all of the gameplay mechanics and general design decisions featured in this title, and I'll examine why these things are bad, and most importantly, what made this game a terrible sequel. There will be a lot of comparison to the first DMC in this video, and if you like this game, well, I apologize in advance. With that being said, let's start with DMC2's gameplay. Devil May Cry 2 plays similarly to the first DMC, in the sense that your main objective is to run around open-ended environments, killing demons, gaining red orbs, and purchasing upgrades for your equipment. There are new additions and mechanics to the gameplay formula that mix things up a bit, and also a new playable character, Lucia, who has her own story mode and playstyle. DMC2 also unfortunately changes a lot about what made the first game so satisfying and fun to play. In my DMC1 video, I didn't really explain how the combat worked in that game, more specifically the deeper elements of melee attacks and dodging. In DMC1, Dante has a standard 3-hit combo with his sword that you can execute by repeatedly pressing the attack button. The fun thing about this is if you pause after Dante's second attack in the combo string and then immediately hit the attack button again, you can execute a more advanced combo that'll throw out more hits to do extra damage. There are a few of these types of attacks with Dante's swords, depending on how long you wait after the second attack has been active. These delayed attacks work either if you're locked onto an enemy or not. And speaking of lock-on, in the first DMC, you can pull off devastating thrusts and launchers by locking onto an enemy and holding the movement stick either towards or away from them. The way you dodged attacks in DMC1 was also a lock-on directional based input. So you'd lock on, hold either left or right on the stick, and then hit the jump button, and there you go. You just quickly dodged an attack. Very simple and effective. In DMC2, almost all of these very satisfying button inputs were replaced with even simpler methods of input. Delayed attack combos have been replaced with this semi-awkward directional attack system. So like before, Dante has a standard combo string, this time 4 hits instead of 3, but after every standard attack in the string, you can press the movement stick in any direction and then press the attack button again to start a completely new combo. These can range from 3 to 5 hits. It might sound complicated because it kind of is. The game never tells you about these combos either, so you just have to figure it out on your own. Oh wait, I guess the instruction manual mentions it, but it literally just says, press the triangle button while moving the left stick to pull off various repeat attacks. I don't know, that still doesn't sound very clear to me. DMC1 is actually guilty of this too. That game also doesn't tell you how to do the delayed attack combos, so both games are equal on that front. That being said, I still think DMC1's combos are easier to figure out on your own. So you have access to more combos in DMC2, and these combos actually change once you activate your devil trigger, but the problem is, you can't execute any of these advanced combos while locked on because DMC2 still uses the locked on directional inputs for the launcher and thrust attacks. This is so not good and shows you why delayed attack combos work better than this weird directional thing that they were going for. You literally can't use all of your abilities if you want to manually lock onto a specific enemy. You'd have to quickly release the lock on button, input one of these directional combos, and then quickly lock on again and pray that Dante doesn't accidentally start attacking the enemy you weren't trying to get at in the first place. It can be really stressful. Dodging has also been remapped to a single button press instead of locking on and hitting the jump button like in the previous title. I have mixed feelings about this change because I think the dodging worked really well in DMC1, but I totally get it if people thought it was complicated and would rather have it be mapped to its own button. The dodge button can also be used to execute Dante's new wall running ability, which I barely used, by the way. I actually found myself getting caught up in wall running animations when I meant to dodge enemy attacks. So, that can happen sometimes. I think the new dodge button is fine, but I definitely prefer the way it worked in the first game. The most insulting part about all of this is that you don't even have to bother with any of these tactics or combos because the enemy AI is absolutely terrible. The enemies barely put up a fight, letting you walk right up to them. You can even run past most enemy encounters in this game. The demons are just like, alright, see you later, maybe. On normal mode, I noticed that enemies would sometimes not even attack me when I was right in their face. They just stand there. Even if they do attack, all of the attacks are so easy to read, so you can dodge them without even really thinking about it. It gets a little better on hard mode because enemies are more aggressive and hit harder, and they use attacks that you'll never see them use in normal mode, but the AI is still really bad, and a lot of the standing around doing nothing still persists in the higher difficulty modes. The bosses don't fare too well either. They feel more like giant, boring set pieces rather than a test of everything you've learned up to that point. 90% of the bosses are huge monsters that have obvious wind-up animations to their attacks that are very easy to dodge or counter. It's a shame because a few of them are really cool looking. I really like the giant building demon, but all it does is just shoot at you with lasers. Most of the boss designs are really boring and strange too, like the infested tanks and choppers. That, by the way, do nothing but shoot at you from a distance. Literally, the one thing you could do against the chopper is shoot your guns at it. Incredibly boring gameplay. Now that I think of it, a lot of the bosses work in that way. Like the massive, time-wasting floating heads boss, and the giant butterfly who attacks you off-screen and is so high up that you can't even hit it with melee attacks, most of the time. It just feels like the devs made these bosses but didn't have time to really work on them, so they just made them stand really far away from you, forcing you to shoot at them. Only one of the bosses is well designed and fun to fight, mainly because this boss is a humanoid creature, and you actually have to mix up your attacks during certain phases of the battle. It reminded me of fighting Nello Angelo from the first game, but it comes way too late, literally being the final boss for Dante. It's really depressing when almost every standard enemy and boss can be easily defeated just by firing your guns at them, in a Devil May Cry game. By the way, the firearms in DMC2 are way too overpowered. Just shooting at most enemies begins juggling them. No sword launcher required in this game. The guns do so much more damage than they did in the first title, specifically Dante's pistols. So the thing about Devil May Cry 1 is that you're fighting demons from hell, right? It makes sense in my mind that these creatures would be able to withstand a lot of pistol ammo. They can just soak this stuff up easily. As you played through DMC1, you'd find stronger but slower guns like the shotgun and grenade launcher. These weapons were spread over the course of the game to make you feel as if you were progressing and getting stronger in your battles. DMC2 starts you with a pair of pistols that can mow down monsters like it's nothing. Pretty much all combat situations are solvable by using Dante's pistols, and that's really not fun in a hack-and-slash video game. Seriously, you'll just be standing in the corner of a room firing away and taking almost no resistance from your enemies. It's like a really boring version of a Resident Evil game where you have infinite ammo, except in Resident Evil they managed to make infinite ammo fun. I know I'm complaining a lot about this, but honestly, it seems like DMC2's gunplay was the only thing the devs had time to flesh out. It's the most polished mechanic of DMC2's gameplay. You'll be finding a bunch of guns like the SMGs, shotgun, and rocket launcher, and like I mentioned at the start of the video, Dante now has the ability to shoot 2 demons at once with his dual-wielding options. And he also gets some new aerial firearm abilities too, but I never felt the need to use them. You can also quickly swap between firearms during gameplay, cutting down on menuing. I actually really like this addition because in the first game it got really annoying having to open up the menu every time I wanted to change my guns. Now it's all in real time, baby. You can also find new melee weapons as you progress through the story, but all of them are swords that have the same moveset as your starting blade. All of the swords apparently have different stats, but I upgraded them all fully, and they all pretty much did the same amount of damage. By the way, the upgrade system for this game sucks too. You literally only upgrade the damage output of a weapon. You're not buying new skills or attacks for a particular sword like you did in the first game. Basically, you'll be learning nothing as you progress through the story, and you're better off not even bothering with these upgrades. I've talked a lot about Dante, but I bet you're wondering how the new character, Lucia, plays. Okay, so I've seen debate online about the pronunciation of Lucia's name, and now I'm going to switch over to saying Lucia just so I could appeal to both sides of the argument. I'm sorry. Anyway, Lucia definitely does play differently from Dante, being a lot faster, using 2 curved swords instead of a giant one, and starting the game with throwing knives rather than pistols. Unfortunately, Lucia also suffers from all of what I told you about Dante. Her combo inputs are exactly the same, and her ranged weapons are also very overpowered. As Lucia, you also play through a lot of the same levels as Dante's, but she does have some unique levels, and obviously her story is different. Remember the weird underwater level from DMC1? Well, for Lucia, you'll be playing through a bunch of those, but in third person. They are all uninteresting and bad. Lucia does fight William Birkin's 4th form in the end of her story, which is kinda weird. Oh, a little bit of a crossover, I see. Or maybe just a lack of creativity in design. I will say that I like to play as Lucia more. Maybe I shouldn't say like, I prefer to play as Lucia more than Dante. Mainly because her moves are faster and she has less levels than him, so less game to play. Geez, I feel like I'm being really negative in this video. Let's talk about something I actually like about this game. The Devil Trigger system is pretty cool. In DMC2, your Devil Trigger can now be customized using amulets you'll find throughout the game. These amulets give you the ability to fly, run faster, hit harder, or restore more of your vitality while using Devil Trigger. You can only have 3 of a certain type equipped at one time, so I guess it helps with balance, like this game even has any of that. There are also 3 different elemental amulets that can change your DT attack to either fire, ice, or lightning, but I never really saw a huge difference in damage output between these. I have, however, seen a difference in my own Devil Trigger. Here, let me show you. I've got a tail now. I hope I don't trip over it. Gray skin. I really liked being red. The outfit is still very sexy though. Man, I hope next time I turn into a weird bug demon thing. I just really like customization and having more options in my games. Oh yeah, there's also a secret form that you can activate with Dante's DT called Majin Devil Trigger. So when you're about to die and you use your DT, Dante will transform into this giant demon with very powerful attacks. I couldn't get Majin form in normal mode because the game is really easy, but I did get it during my hard mode playthrough against one of the late game bosses. I think this game's Devil Trigger amulet Majin system is really cool. I like it a lot, and another cool thing about these DT amulets is that they're hidden throughout the levels, encouraging environment exploration. The problem with DMC2's exploration is that almost all of the levels are both huge and very empty. It's really weird. There are levels that'll see you running around doing nothing while a very eerie sounding OST plays in the background. It's like a weird art house movie of a guy running down a street just looking for something to do. Yeah, that's what I think of whenever Devil May Cry pops into my mind. Oh look, I just ran around this loop for 2 minutes straight. What's my reward? A red orb. Oh, okay. The only things you'll be finding are the DT amulets and items like red orbs and sometimes blue orb fragments, and of course, the weapons I mentioned earlier. It's not completely unlike the first game, but in the first DMC, the environments were tight and beautifully modeled. They all had a legitimate purpose for being in the game. Well, maybe not the water levels, but you know what I mean. I think all of the city and village levels look really good in DMC2, and there's this really cool level where you have to ascend a clock tower as Lucia, but there are some downright ugly levels in this game. There are a few parts where you'll be exploring caves and underground ruins, and some of this texture work is god-awful. Just copy and paste everything all over the room. Other levels like the factory and skyscraper are really boring for obvious reasons. They're just bland, real-life places. And you'll also probably get lost while exploring them. The biggest problem I had with DMC2's game world is that none of these places really have any character to them. In the first game, you can enter a room and hit the confirm button on almost every surface, and you'd see text of Dante's thoughts describing what's in front of him. You can't do this in DMC2, and it's a real letdown. Like, what is this weird Mayan temple? Who lived here? Who built this place? In DMC1, if you wanted to find out more about the castle you were in and Malay Island, you can do that by investigating your surroundings. Just some more world building would have been great to see in DMC2. It all feels very rushed, and that's extremely unfortunate. So the final thing I'm going to be talking about with DMC2's gameplay is its secret third playable character, Trish. If you don't remember, Trish appeared as a main character in the first game. She was Dante's on and off ally who eventually became his business partner. In DMC2, you unlock Trish once you finish the game on hard mode as Dante. I always knew she was in this game, but I never actually played as her until recently. And oh my god, Trish has the exact same moveset that Dante had in the first game. This blew my mind when I found out about it, so all of my complaining earlier about this game not having the original delayed combos, well, I was somewhat wrong about that because Trish has them. And guess what? She's kind of fun to play as. Trish uses the Sparta sword from the first game and has all of the combos from DMC1 and the advanced upgrade attacks like Air Raid, Round Trip, and all of Ifrit's punches and kicks. Trish's guns also shoot rapid fire like Dante's guns originally did, and her shots don't start juggling enemies unless you use her Devil Trigger. This is how Dante should have played in this game. I don't understand why they didn't just apply this data to his character and then have you unlock his new combos as you upgraded your weaponry. That would have been so much better and would have served character progression in a great way. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying though, the game doesn't all of a sudden become good after you unlock Trish. You still have to deal with terrible enemy AI and the very annoying shooty bosses. What I'm saying is, playing as Trish feels better and gives you a glimpse into what we could have gotten out of this game if they kept that original control style. Also, you have to finish DMC2 twice with Dante in order to make this title feel like DMC1, and I don't think many of you guys would want to put up with that in the first place. There are so many other little problems that I can talk about with this game, like its camera system being a little wonky and the overall lack of intensity from the combat, but I think I've gone on long enough about how these mechanics don't live up to the original game's stellar design and presentation. I could talk about the game's story in depth, but honestly, there's not much to talk about besides obvious things like Dante's change of character. Dante feels kinda weird in this game. He's no longer the wisecracking charisma machine we saw him as in the first title. This time Dante feels more like the strong and silent type. He doesn't say much, and the story doesn't really revolve around him either. I don't really have a problem with silent Dante because I think this version is cool too. Lucia is more of the main character in this story. Her motivations for wanting to kill demons and take out the main villain have greater meaning than Dante just being there to kill demons and help out. Both characters' stories intersect RE2 style, but I'd say there aren't enough scenes in this game to make you feel like both characters even have a friendship or anything like that. Dante just saves Lucia over and over again, and it's not that exciting. Overall, I'd say the story is fine, not much happens, and the twists are kind of underwhelming, and you probably won't care much for the characters at all. Well, besides Lucia, because she actually has some reason to be here. One thing I will say very quickly before we move on is that the character designs are really great. I love this version of Dante. He looks a bit older, and the black accents on his outfit are really cool. I'll just say it, he's very hot. Lucia is also awesome. I really like her scarf, and her outfit reminds me of an old-fashioned Renaissance-style ninja. I think the Diesel costumes look fine, but it's always weird seeing a real-life clothing company in a video game. I don't know, it feels kind of cheap and maybe a little desperate, like they didn't have enough funds to make this game. Oh, and Dante's Devil Trigger gun barrel hands are pretty creepy. I really don't like that at all. So yeah, DMC2 is boring, way too easy, and worst of all, disappointing. I've talked a lot about what makes this game bad, but I bet you're wondering, how? How did this game end up like this? What mistakes were made in DMC2's development that left us with this half-baked game? Well, there's not a ton of info out there about this title's development, but what I could find is pretty interesting. So first of all, this game was not directed by the man responsible for DMC1. You know, smooth criminal Hideki Kamiya. Instead, this project was passed off to another director who is actually unknown. Let me explain. After almost a year of development, Capcom was incredibly disappointed with the progress made on DMC2. Under this new director, one of the dev team's major goals was to make DMC2's levels 90% larger than all of the levels in DMC1. It's clear by the final product that the team didn't have enough time to actually fill these levels with interesting things to do or find. The dev team also had to incorporate data accumulated from surveys about the original DMC's gameplay. This might explain why DMC2 is a lot easier and feels rushed in comparison to its predecessor. Can you imagine a guy like Hideki Kamiya relying on survey data to make his games? That would never happen. By the way, speaking of Bad Boy Kamiya, apparently he was pretty upset at Capcom for just giving the sequel to the series he created over to some random guy without consulting him or even speaking to anyone on Team Little Devils. That's really messed up. All of this survey data and terrible direction was making this game's development harder than it needed to be, eventually leading Capcom to remove this mystery director from the project altogether. This decision came pretty late into the game's development, and the project was handed over to known Capcom director Hideaki Itsuno. At the time, Itsuno was responsible for games like Street Fighter Alpha, Rival Schools, and a bunch of other really great Capcom fighters of that era. With Itsuno's knowledge of making technical fighting games, he was the perfect fit for a project like a Devil May Cry game. With only 4 months of development time left, Itsuno and his team managed to salvage the pieces of DMC2 and turn it into something playable. I actually feel bad for Itsuno because he had to come in at the last minute and clean up this mystery director's mess. He had to put his name on the line for DMC2, and that really sucks. Imagine suddenly being responsible for something that clearly wasn't being taken seriously. It explains why DMC2 feels bland and all over the place, because there is obviously not a single director's vision going on with this game. Once DMC2 released, the game received mixed to bad reviews from various gaming outlets, the main complaint being that the game was too easy. Things weren't looking too good for this game, but this isn't a sad ending for Devil May Cry. Despite all of this negative press surrounding DMC2, the game still sold extremely well, opening up the possibility for a third entry into the series. After DMC2's release, Itsuno was determined to make up for the game's lack of quality and challenge for the next Devil May Cry title. His next project would see a massive improvement over everything introduced in DMC2, creating something truly legendary. But that, my friends, is a story for another time. Hey there, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry this video took so long for me to make. It's really draining writing an almost purely negative script. I played through this game like 4 times, and each time I finished it, I felt like I was wasting my time, and it made me kind of sad. I'm much more looking forward to the next DMC game. That should be really fun to talk about. If you guys like this video, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And if you'd like to support me and help keep my channel going, please check out the link to my Patreon down in the description box. Every little bit helps, and I only ask for $1. But you can also get an extra Patreon exclusive show that I do called Inside the Sphere at $5. It's sort of like a catch-up, more personal style, what I've been playing type of video. I'd like to give a shout out to everyone supporting me on there. I love you guys. Also, one more shout out to the absolutely amazing Itla, who did the level 2 Devil Sue DT for this video. Thank you, Itla. I really appreciate it, as always. Anyway, guys, I'll be talking to you real soon in my next video. Later!